Hello Eagles Nation, Vincent Focht here, and welcome to a Week 13 Eagles Chat. We're here at Eagles Chat, we get down right to the news you want to hear on your birds. But before we get into it, make sure you like and subscribe to the Eagles Chat YouTube channel, as well as following us on Instagram at Chat Eagles, where you can find daily updates on your birds. And you can also find our Instagram in the description of this Eagles Chat video. But now let's get right into it. And as we all know, the birds went up against the other birds, the Blackbirds, down in Baltimore, and got a big-time statement win. 24-19 is your final. So the Eagles came into Baltimore, and of course, as per usual, were counted out by all the so-called experts. It's like a rerun every single week. The Eagles weren't supposed to win last week against the Rams, where a lot of people were saying, oh, the Rams are doing pretty well as of late. I don't know if the Eagles know what they're in for, and it was the same thing this week, where the Eagles were going into Baltimore, and the so-called quote was, I don't know if they know what they're in for, especially going up against a so-called AFC juggernaut. There was a photo surfacing all through social media today and yesterday after the game of a whole panel predicting the Baltimore Ravens to win. So yes, everyone was against the Eagles as usual. Philly fans, where have we seen this before? And of course, that argument also aroused of the so-called, you haven't played any team over 500 yet. Yeah, that excuse has came back up. I mean, hey, where have we seen that before? We saw it back in 2022. We saw a little bit of it back in 2017. I remember some folks complaining about that as well. So folks always find a way to complain about the Eagles. It's because they wish they were us, and no one likes us, but hey, we don't care. And yeah, to this day, no Philly fan should care, because they're always so jealous of the Philly faithful, because no one has a fan base like us, and as well, always jealous of our team for some weird reason. I wonder why. But let's get into this injury update, which unfortunately is not the most positive thing, but it's never usually positive. And our first injury on this update is Britton Covey. Now, the news with him is he is said to have a neck injury, and unfortunately for Covey, he was just coming back from an injury. He came back from a broken bone in his shoulder, and unfortunately, his first game back is another exit for him. So hopefully he will be doing all right. We'll continue to monitor that injury very, very closely. Another one that we have up here on the update is Reed Blankenship. Now, the news with him is he was said to be evaluated for a concussion over in the blue tent. The only problem was it was positive. He was evaluated, and he was positive for a concussion. So that's not great news. He's a big-time piece of that Eagles defense, especially why they're as good as they are. And the secondary was doing very well with him, but there was some friendly fire yesterday, and he ended up getting hit in the head area, and unfortunately he is out. So again, the Eagles had a concussion last week with Darius Slay, aka Big Play Slay, and now here we go again with another concussion to a key player in the secondary part of the Eagles. So hopefully it's a speedy recovery for Reed Blankenship. But our next and final injury on this update is Dallas Goedert. Now, believe it or not, there is some good news that came out of this. Yes, it's bad that Dallas Goedert's on the injury update, and he is said to have a knee injury, but news has been flying all over the place today from multiple different sources that apparently Dallas Goedert avoided a season-ending injury, which is always good to see. So yes, it's not good that he got an injury, but it's also very, very good that it's something that's not season-ending. Now, that's the last thing that we need. We already had Brandon Graham, who is now out for the season with an injury last week. The last thing we need is another player out for the season, but this time on the offense, and one of the top tight ends in the league right here. So, yeah, the Eagles would not be able to really afford losing Dallas Goedert, especially since they didn't have Devontae Smith for yesterday's game because of the hamstring injury still bothering him. So, yeah, something that the Eagles can't really afford. Right now, he is week to week, so they're going to continue to monitor him very, very closely. We will do the same on the Eagles Chat Instagram page. Again, that's in the description of this video. We will constantly post Eagles injury updates as it gets closer to week 14, bringing you updates on how Dallas Goedert is doing in his recovery process. Hopefully it is growing more and more each and every week, where he is making improvements each and every day. But again, this is something that you do not want to rush, especially as the playoffs are right around the corner. And then right now, with the way the Eagles are looking, if they don't do a collapse like last year, they're on the road to victory. But I'm not going to say anything more than that, because the last thing I need to do is jinx my own team. But now, let's go into the defense. So as most of you know, usually on these Eagles chats, I have Jalen Hurts' play be the first slide once we get more into the Eagles chat. Well, I didn't do that this game. I had to change it up for the defense to be first because the defense played their rear ends off, and they were all over the place, did an incredible job with shutting down Baltimore's big-time weapons. And let's start getting into our contributors. First off, we have Jalen Carter. Cannot ignore him. He was all over the place yesterday. He had 8 pressures and had 1 sack. So they were doing a great job, and being led by Jalen Carter on that defensive line, we're doing a great job with getting to Lamar Jackson, who, if you don't know Lamar Jackson, yeah, he's a pretty quick dude. So the Eagles' defensive line did an incredible job with being able to get to him and not allow him to have that much space and really have a lot of time to make his decisions. So great job by Jalen Carter yesterday, really being the captain of that defensive line, especially since Brandon Graham is now out for the rest of the season. So Brandon Graham is doing what he can on the sideline to help lead these guys, but Jalen Carter was 100% a big-time leader for that line yesterday under Clint Hurt, the new offensive line coach that was just hired this offseason. This defensive line, I tell you what, struggled a little bit at the beginning of the season, but has really been improving, and especially against a quarterback like Lamar Jackson. Hey, I'd say that was a pretty good game by them yesterday. But our next contributor, Cooper DeJean, of course, the one tackle everyone's talking about from DeJean is how he stood up one of the best running backs in the league, being Derrick Henry. Man, I tell you what, Cooper DeJean did an incredible job. And that wasn't just one of those tackles where they aim for the knees or aim for the ankles. No, it was a full-on textbook football, body-on-body tackle. An incredible play by Cooper DeJean yesterday. And it's something where the rookies are really shining right now for the Birds. And it's kind of right now, it's kind of like a Howie Roseman love fest for every single pickup that he made this previous offseason had played incredible yesterday. And what I mean by that is, let's go on to our next contributor. Yeah, another rookie, Quinyon Mitchell, who had an incredible game with shutting down the pass game for the Ravens. Yes, the Ravens got passes in here and there. Yes, 100% they did. And at the beginning of the game, of course, the one touchdown by the Ravens everyone was talking about was the catch above 3 Eagles defenders. But something Vic Fangio has been doing a great job of this year has been his ability to adjust the defense. And that's something, in my opinion, we haven't seen in a long time out of the Eagles. Even with Jonathan Gannon, we didn't see that much out of him. With whatever that was last year, with that combination of Sean Desai and Matt Patricia, that big mess, that we didn't see it. Of course we didn't see it last year, but I tell you what, Howie Roseman, and this is exactly what he was trying to do, was get players to fit Fangio's system. And I tell you what, they definitely did a good job with that because these players are fitting in the Fangio system perfectly. Of course, I have criticized Fangio in the past with his light coverage in terms of being 7 to 5 yards off of the receiver at times, but with the way these guys have been playing, Fangio's defensive strategy has been working perfectly with the new pickups the Eagles got this past offseason. And speaking of another new pickup this past offseason, he's not a rookie, but he's still a new pickup for the team. And that is Zack Baun, who, as per usual, is all over the place. Zack Baun had 14 tackles during yesterday's game. He was in the backfield making plays. He was in the secondary making plays. He was pretty much all over the place. He was in the box making plays. So he was all over the place yesterday for the Birds. Zack Baun has been an incredible, reliable linebacker, and it's been something very, very special. Has been probably one of the top linebackers in the NFL. So I tell you what, coming from a guy who wasn't really doing that much on the on the New Orleans Saints, to coming to Philly and being an absolute star, I love to see it. I'm glad to see this defense doing as good as they are. And I tell you what, again, it's like a Howie Roseman love fest in terms of what the moves he made this offseason, because pretty much every single move he made this offseason on defense did their job. We're not going to talk about Bryce Huff, right? We'll keep that to the side for now. But besides Bryce Huff, every other player that was a good pickup this offseason was doing their job. And hey, these guys right here, I mean, that's all I really need to say. They described everything else with their play on the field. So great job by this defense. But now moving on to the offense. So yes, the defense this, the defense that. Well, they had a good game, but the offense as well contributed when necessary. And let's look at our contributors. First off, Saquon Barkley. Yes, can't ignore him. He had 23 carries for 107 yards and 1 touchdown. So, yes, he didn't do better than he did last week, but of course, I'm not expecting a guy to have over 255 yards or 255 yards back-to-back weeks, okay? I'm not expecting the guy to be Superman, okay? I'm not crazy. But The Ravens were expecting it. Of course, you're coming into this game with a running back who had 255 yards on the ground, not including his reception yards, but just 255 rushing yards last week. The Ravens did at times, and I saw it yesterday, they were stacking the box at times to try to stop the Eagles' rush, which at times worked and at times didn't work, where the Eagles did utilize the edge when necessary, and as well, they did run it up the middle and use the great gaps by this beautiful offensive line, which has been really doing their job as of late. So Barkley was able to get to him. Again, Barkley looking at it, 23 carries, 107 yards, 1 touchdown. So he did get to him when necessary. And speaking of another contributor, it wasn't that much of a big pass game yesterday, but they still used Brown when necessary. A.J. Brown, 5 receptions for 66 yards. So, yeah, it wasn't the most... didn't have the most passing yards yesterday, but they were able to adjust when necessary. They used the run when they needed to, and they used the passing game when they needed to. In my opinion, I would like to see some more of the passing game yesterday, especially since the Baltimore Ravens secondary is not really the greatest thing in the world. So would like to have seen the passing game just a tad bit more yesterday, but hey, the main thing is, did they win? Yes. Okay, that's all that really matters. So the offense, again, they adjusted when necessary. Kellen Moore was able to get them into a rhythm more into the fourth quarter. Again, it was a little bit of a slow start with the penalties constantly going after them in the beginning of the game, and as well with the 3 and outs. The offense, again, did take a little while to get going, but once they got going in the second quarter, they started to get some points up and were able to take a lead, if I'm not wrong, in halftime, and then were able to add on to that in the second half with this big-time win being 24-19 over the Baltimore Ravens. But now let's go on to Jalen Hurts' play. Again, like I said, wasn't the most the largest in terms of passing yards for this game. As Hurts was only 11 out of 19 for 118 yards. He had 1 passing touchdown to Dallas Goedert, and for his rushing, he had 9 carries for 29 yards, and of course that 1 rushing touchdown that he also had. So Hurts, again, he had some down moments, but he was able to adjust when necessary. There were some times where I was literally screaming at him to get rid of the ball, and he went down with the ship at times, but it wasn't overall a horrible game. He was able to help the team when he needed to. He did his job. And again, Jalen Hurts, I do think there is still some room for improvement with that, as I like to call it, the invisible QB clock, which should be in your head, which 1, 2, 3, that ball should be out of the pocket. So I still think there is some room for improvement there, but all in all, it was a pretty okay game by Jalen Hurts, and they were able to get the job done. But now, here we go, moving into Week 14 against the Carolina Panthers, Sunday, December 8th at the Link in South Philadelphia. So, it's just the Carolina Panthers. Surely this should be an automatic win. Well, yeah, I wouldn't say that at all. This Carolina Panthers team is not like the New York Giants or like the New York Jets. No, they're a team that's actually, I'll say this, competitive. And I'm not scared to say that at all. And I 100% stand by the word competitive as a statement for the Carolina Panthers. As ever since they sat Bryce Young and brought Young back, this Carolina Panthers team has been different. And I tell you what, looking at their game just yesterday against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, yes, they ended up losing that game. In my opinion, they completely 100% could have won that game, but they ended up shooting themselves in the foot in overtime where they had the ball in the red zone. All they had to do was hold on to the ball, and they fumbled it in the red zone, allowing Tampa Bay to take over and win the game. But again, they were tied. They put Tampa Bay Buccaneers into overtime. Yeah, the Carolina Panthers are the real deal, and especially at this time of the season where the Birds are neck and neck with the Detroit Lions to try to get that first seed, as we are really trucking up here on the playoffs. As folks, we're in December. It's December 2nd currently today. So this is something where every game matters. Of course, every game has mattered all season, but this is the point where things really start to tighten up. You're in a neck and neck race right now with the Detroit Lions. Every loss is a big factor. Every win is a big factor, and the Eagles really need to make sure they hunker down and really pay attention to this game. Yes, I understand it's against a team with a not-so-good record in your home stadium, but this is one of those teams where I really think that the record does not define them, and a team that you 100% cannot overlook. You need every win, and this is something where they should win this game, but again, there is no guarantees, especially in the NFL. But that's all for me, folks. with this Week 13 Eagles Chat. The Birds were able to get the job done against the other Birds in Baltimore, and they really showed who the real Birds of the NFL, the real Bird team of the NFL is, being the team only in South Philadelphia. That's all for me. Hope everyone had a great Thanksgiving, and I'll see you back here next week to cover the Eagles-Panthers game here on Eagles Chat. That's all, and as always, go Birds! Have a good week, everybody, and I'll see you next time.